Good evening. My name is Ivan Hunt. I'm the owner of IFH Synergized Solutions. This is my logo, my beautiful little girl. And what I do is I am a relationship coach, I am a marriage coach, I am a personal development coach, and a public communicator. I've got probably about 15 years in corporate America. I have a degree in accounting. I have I'm certified as a Six Sigma Green Belt, executive management certification. I'm currently enrolled in IPEC coaching, specializing in relationship coaching to become certified there as well. I am a mentor and motivational speaker for an at-risk youth program here in Miami for the Miami-Dade County school systems. I am about to be involved as of next week as a mentor for veterans that are caught up in the judicial system. Myself being a veteran, I'm very proud of that, and I look forward to that opportunity. You can find me on a couple places. My website is www.ifh-solutions.com. You can follow me on Facebook at IFH Synergized Solutions. I recently put up a post on Facebook discussing the three things that I think men really struggle with in relationship. The first one is communication or the ability to express themselves. The second one is what their real role in a family is, and how does they fit. Where does a man fit in today's family structure? And the third one was intimacy. Men struggle with intimacy. What even the definition of what intimacy is, let alone forget trying to achieve it. So the thing that I put up on Facebook regarding these three items or these three areas is, in communication, men are typically taught two forms of expression. That's anger and lust. You can look at our sports activities. You can look at our roles in movies, our performers in music. We're really only taught two forms, anger and lust, and that's what's acceptable. But it's detrimental in a relationship if that's only two ways you can express yourself. I kind of got my order mixed up a little bit, but the second thing that I put up there was intimacy. Men struggle with intimacy and really understanding what intimacy is. Intimacy is not sexual. It's not sex. It can enhance sex, but it is not sex. You have to learn how to be vulnerable, not just with your significant other, but you first have to learn how to be vulnerable with yourself and learn how to become intimate with yourself, and being able to be real with yourself and be able to identify how you really feel with yourself. And once you become a friend of yourself, and once you learn how to love yourself, then you have the framework and the tools in which to start learning or start developing a deeper intimacy with your significant other. Now, the third part was the roles within the family. How do men fit in today's society and today's family structure? We live in a dual economy world. The old-fashioned principles don't seem to apply now. We're not the sole breadwinner anymore. The woman is not our property. Machismo is not a healthy thing. It's very destructive, actually. So once you start to understand what your real role is within the family, one of which I believe is part of my role or my job, my duty, my responsibility as a husband for my wife, is to help her maximize who she's supposed to be. For her to fulfill her divine being, what she is divinely meant to be. So part of my job as a man and as her husband is to help her grow and build, to be this beautiful flower that she was meant to be. So that's one of my roles. There's others, of course, but that's one of them just as an example. So going to the first one, where men struggle with communication or expression. Now I won't go into, you know, all the different forms of expression, such as sadness, joy, happiness, peace, anger. Well, we'll touch on anger, um, sadness, depression, anxiety, stress. Um, those are all kind of in the middle part of the spectrum, even crying for that matter. Um, but on the extreme ends of the spectrum is anger and lust. So I want to talk a little bit tonight or this evening about anger. And what I've come to realize is, um, and I've had some really rough experiences in my life. I've had horrible relationships. Um, I was never faithful. I was very aggressive. Some forms abusive. My first marriage was horrendous. We fought like cats and dogs, um, and I hated myself for it. And I found myself even repeating these same habits in my current marriage, and I almost lost my current wife as a result of this too. So I really had to figure out, okay, the problem is with me. The problem is not with her, but the problem lies within me. And I had to realize that, one, I'm passive aggressive, so I would just snap for no reason, or what would appear to be no reason, and it got me in a lot of trouble throughout various stages of my life. And it's not very constructive in a relationship either. It's not one of those tools that you want in your toolbox. But what I do want to do is give you some tools to help you manage your anger. And so, yes, this is a form of anger management. In order to control your emotions and control your anger, you have to start understanding the different levels of anger. First, excuse me, first remember that anger is nothing more than an emotion. It's not a state of being. We oftentimes, as men, confuse anger as a state of being or a state of mind, both of which can consume you very quickly. And before you know it, that is who you are. You are an angry person. And that is very destructive within the home, because that kind of touches on what your role is within the family. As you go, your family goes. So if you're an angry person or perceived by your family to be an angry person, so will your family reflect what you are or what you're perceived to be, angry. So the first level of my 6 levels of Pisstivity is aggravation. Usually the first thing that really gets me going is I start to become aggravated. And that's usually the first level of my anger. I'll get aggravated because, you know what? She's always saying, well, why didn't you do this? Well, why didn't you do that? Or didn't you know that I needed this? Or didn't you know I needed that? Don't you know all the things that I do? Da 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 da. And you know what? You just don't want to hear them out sometimes. And so next thing you know, you're not really mad. You know what I'm saying? You're just aggravated. It's like whatever. You know. The second level is there's a physical change. Now, that physical change may not always be observant to the other person. In other words, they may not pick up on your physical change, but you should. So what is a physical change, or what do I mean? Well, you're probably going to become a little bit more fidgety. You're going to start rubbing your head. Most of the time, if I get to stage 2, you start rubbing my head, and that's a marker for me. Hey, look, Ivan, it's time to calm down. You start tapping your fingers, you start tapping your leg, or your face starts to become flushed. There is a physical change, and that's how you know you're at level 2. of Pisstivity. Level 3 is the vocalizing of that physical change. You start to vocalize that, that flushness in your face. You're starting to vocalize that fidgety nature. And what happens in the vocalization stage, if you will, is your tone changes. So before it's like, okay, baby, I was agitated, but now you done made me mad. And your tone changes. Now, the other person, they didn't hear or see level 2. They just saw level 1 and level 3. So that's where you as a man have to learn how to control and master your emotions to be able to pick up on level 2. And this applies not just to men, but it applies to anybody, man or woman, child. It doesn't matter. It's just identifiers to help you. Level 4 is you start to become a little bit defensive. So instead of them telling you, hey, look, don't you know I needed this or I needed that, and you turn around and say, well, you know what? I needed this too, or I needed that too, and you didn't do it for me, or you didn't do it for that. You become defensive. And in this stage, you're probably starting to curse too. So that's another good marker. So you got to stop long enough to be able to hear yourself and hear what you're saying. And at the 5th stage, you start having aggressive thoughts. You're defending yourself, but at the same time, you start having these violent thoughts. And yes, they are violent because you're thinking about slapping them, you're thinking about pushing them, you're thinking about grabbing them, you're thinking about shaking them, you're thinking about knocking them down or knocking them out or whatever. God forbid you go further. So at level 5, you start having violent thoughts. At level 6, and this, I'm going to say the 2 words just for effect, but at level 6, there's these 2 words that you say that will change the rest of your life. And it's usually going to be for the worse. And at level 6, you'll say, fuck it. And as soon as you do that, you've crossed that line. You've lost all respect. So you can almost say level 6, level 6 is respect or lack thereof. But what usually causes that lack of respect is for you saying those 2 words. It never ends well, I promise you. As soon as you say those 2 words, it never ends well for you or for the other person. Never. Now, after you calm down, you've had that burst or that explosion, and you've calmed down, and in some ways you kind of think, well, that I feel a little bit better, but at the same time you feel guilty and you feel all these other emotions. But you didn't have to do that. You have choices. There's ways to benchmark yourself and see actually how you're doing. So, for example, when you're at level 1 and you're at aggression, so I use an example between my wife and I. There are certain times where there may be certain things she does that just aggravate me a little bit, and we may be having a conversation, and she kind of senses that I'm aggravated. She's in tune with me a lot, and she'll sense that I'm aggravated, and I may try to deny that I'm aggravated, and I'll shut down. I won't talk. And what I've learned is, I have one of my choices is I can just shut down and not talk, which is only going to make the woman matter. Trust me. They're going to just talk more because the woman will do anything she can to get your attention. That's what she wants. She wants your attention until she don't want your attention no more, and then you're looking at the front door. Get it? So I've learned that what I have to do is sometimes I have to take a step back, and I have to say, okay, look, we need a 5-10 minute break here. We'll finish this conversation, I promise you. We'll come back to this conversation. I respect the fact that there's something on your mind, and we will address it. But I'm starting to get a little aggravated here. I don't want to go to level 2. So let's just stay at level 1. Let me calm down, and then we'll address it. But that's when you have a very high sensory acuity. When you're really in tune with yourself and you're really in touch with yourself. And at level 2, you have that physical change. You can kind of feel yourself starting to get riled up, And again, you have that choice. You know, the choice is, are you going to stay that way? The choice is, what can I do to calm myself down? That's the goal. The goal is how to maintain control of yourself. Because if you can maintain control of yourself, then you've maintained control within the relationship too. So we touched a little bit about the roles, and that's a whole nother video. As to is intimacy is another video. But once you start realizing that you've had this physical change, then it's up to you to address it. Hey baby, I need to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Or, you know what? I need a glass of water. I'll be right back. You want a glass of water too? And see, now you done flipped it on them. Because you didn't hit them with something totally different. But at the same time, it's giving you that 2 or 3 seconds that you need to regain control of yourself. And at level 3, you start vocalizing it. You know, so what can you do again? You still have to find things that help you calm yourself down. What works for me may not work for you. I'm just throwing out ideas here for you. So when I realize that I'm starting to, you know, my vocal tone has changed, and my physical, there's been that physical change, and now that physical change is resulting into that vocal change. You know, I may just turn on music, or I may play a song in my head. I'll do anything that I have to do to try to distract myself long enough to realize what level I'm at. And if I can realize that I'm at level 3, then I can say, okay, I need to calm down. And slowly but surely, you'll pass through level 2. There'll be that physical shift to where you calm down. And then you'll get back to level 1. You'll still be a little agitated, but you're not over that threshold yet. And there's been no real lines crossed within your marriage. We should never touch on level 5, 4, 5, and 6. The defensive cursing stage, the aggressive violent thoughts, or the 6th stage, the acting out of those violent thoughts, because that's usually what happens. You know, at the defensive stage, you know, if you really think about it, you know, there's still a little distance between the two of you. Literally, there's a physical distance between the two of you. But usually by the time you get to level 5 and you start having those violent thoughts, and you get to level 6 and you start acting on those thoughts, you get closer in proximity to each other. And the closer you get, the more likelihood of something bad happening. That neither one of you are going to win. You know, it's not, and think about what you're going to put your kids through too. So the focus here really is on levels 1, 2, and 3. Understand when you're getting agitated. Understand what makes you aggravated in these situations. You know, is it something that she's saying? Because what she's saying may be the truth, and that's why you don't want to deal with it. But you have to take responsibility of your actions as well. So, did you have a bad day? Is that why you're aggravated so quickly? And if so, you got to take a step back and say, hey, you know what? I just had a bad day today, baby. That's all. You know, just let me breathe for a second. And she'll be more receptive to you. But make sure you go back and address whatever concern she had. And at level 2, if you see that shift, that physical shift, if you feel it and sense it, you got to stop it. You got to catch yourself. You got to keep the levels in your mind. It's a practice. It's something you have to practice. It's not going to come to you overnight. You can listen to this video and never listen to it again, and you'll go through all of this again. I promise you. But if you listen to the video and really pay attention to the levels and the things I'm telling you, you won't ever get to 4, 5, and 6. There's no reason for you to ever get to 4, 5, and 6 with your significant other. Never. Never. Because they'll have that respect, and that intimacy will start building. So again, the 6 levels of Pisstivity. First one is aggravation. The second one is there's a physical change, fidgetiness, the face being flush, or your feels like your temperature is rising. The third one is there's a vocal change. What that vocal change is the actual communication of that physical change. And at level 4, you start to become defensive. And at this stage, that's usually where you start trying to defend yourself by pointing out the flaws of the other person, and you're usually starting to curse a little bit more too. And level 5 is you start having these violent thoughts. You start to think more aggressively towards that person. You're no longer being on the defense. Now you're in attack mode. And for men, in the way we're taught to be, attack mode is dangerous. You feel me? Attack mode is dangerous because we were taught, hey, look, you defend yourself, and if that defense don't work, then you got to do what you got to do, and that's what leads to level 6. You act on those violent thoughts. Remember, level 5 are violent thoughts. Violent. I'm not going to mince the words. Level 5 is violent thoughts. Level 6 is the acting on them. And look, again, my name is Ivan Hunt. I am a relationship coach. I'm a marriage coach. I'm a personal development coach, public communicator. I love people. I want to help as many people as I possibly can for the rest of my life. This is my passion. This is what I love doing. I love seeing, I don't want to see people to go through some of the things I've had to go through. And if I can stop as many people or prevent as many families of having to avoid the heartaches that I've caused my families, then I'll do whatever it takes to do that. And part of doing whatever it takes is, again, I've opened up my own company, IFH Synergized Solutions. I am in the process of becoming a certified coach. I'm involved with multiple programs as a mentor and a volunteer. You can find me at www.ifh-solutions.com. You can find me on Facebook at IFH Synergized Solutions. And you can find me here on my YouTube channel. Love y'all. Peace and stay blessed.